Hello students, today's question of the day is from genetics. Okay, so let's see what the question is. So the question states that in a plant species, flower color yellow is dominant over white. So it clearly states that yellow color is dominant over white, and fruit shape, that is round, is dominant over elongated. So there's two characteristics given. One is color and one is fruit shape. For color, yellow is dominant over white, and for shape, round is dominant over elongated. So now the question proceeds as: the crossing was performed between two pure plants, one having white flower and elongated fruit. So one parent is this one, that is white flower having elongated fruit, and another with yellow flower and round fruits. So we have got our parents, that is the F1, that is the P generation would be yellow flower and round fruit cross white flower and elongated fruit. Having said that, the question already mentioned that white is recessive, round is yellow is dominant, whereas round is dominant and elongated is recessive. So the previous parent, that is white flower and elongated fruit, is the recessive one, whereas the yellow flower and round fruit is the dominant one. How do we know that? Because the question itself says that yellow is dominant over white and round is dominant over elongated. Okay, let's proceed. About 20 plants survived in F1 progeny. So in F1 progeny, out of all the total progenies that we got in F1 generation, only 20 plants survived. That means the data that we have now is F1 progeny, F1 generation contains 20 plants from the cross, from these two parents, the cross between these two parents. The F1 generation contains 20 plants. Okay, plant of F1 was allowed to self-fertilize. That is, we self the F1 progeny, and about 960 plants survived in the F2. So now we know the number of F2 progeny, that is 960. F1 progeny was 20 and F2 progeny is 960. If the traits follow Mendelian inheritance, the number of plants would have yellow flower and round fruit in F1 and F2 are respectively. Now the question asks us that we know now that F1 progeny has got 20 plants and F2 progeny has got 960 plants. So out of those 20 plants in F1 generation and 960 plants in F2 generation, how many of them are yellow flowered having round fruit, right? So the option says, option A is 20 in F1 and 960 in F2 generation. Option B says 20 in F1 generation and 540 in F2 generation. Option C says 10 in F1 generation and 180 in F2. And D says 10 in F1 and 60 in F2. So now let's work out the problem. Okay, so now we know, as I have told you all, that the parents are round yellow flower and round fruit, and white flower and elongated fruit. Yellow and round being the dominant parent, white and elongated being the recessive parent. Now let's see. And the question clearly says that it follows what? Mendelian inheritance. So we'll follow how Mendel proceeded in his crossing steps. Okay, so let's see. So the flower is the parent generation. In P generation, we are getting yellow round, okay, and crossing it with white elongated. So this is what the question states, elongate. So let's write elongated only. Okay, so this is the cross, these are the parents, round yellow being the dominant one, so we'll use the capital letters for round yellow and not for white elongated. So Y for yellow, R for round. Okay, similarly for white elongated, we'll use the small case, that is small letter. Done. So this is the parent generation. Now if we follow the Mendelian principle, like it have said, it followed the Mendelian inheritance. If we follow that pattern, we will know that in the F1 generation, the resultant offspring will have the genotype capital letter R, Y, small letter y, capital letter R, small letter r. Okay? Since yellow is dominant over white and round is dominant over elongated, so the phenotype of the F1 offspring would be what? It would be yellow round. Clear? Clear till here? Now the question says that in F1 generation, how many offspring survived? 20. 20 offspring survived. Okay. Now let's see, in the F2 generation, total offspring survived was 960 given in the data, given in the question. Okay, now we know we do not need to work out the entire, Punnett square. We know the phenotypic ratio, because at the end of the day, the question asks how many are round and yellow. So we know the phenotypic ratio of dihybrid cross. Why dihybrid? Because here two characters are being taken into consideration. Yellow color and shape is round. So two characters are taken into consideration. So it is a dihybrid cross. So phenotypic ratio of the dihybrid cross in Mendel experiment was 9:3:3:1, in which 9 was the dominant parent, 1 was the recessive parent, and these 3:3 was the recombinant one. For here, suppose it will be yellow elongated and round white. So the questions clearly asks to find out yellow round. So we know from the phenotypic ratio that 9 of them were yellow round. And the total offspring in the F2 generation, according to Mendel, was 16. 9 plus 3 plus 3 plus 1 is equal to 16. So out of 16 offspring, 9 were round and yellow, according to Mendel. So if we follow Mendel's inheritance pattern, we'll get to know that if there are, in this particular cross, 960 offsprings in F2 generation, then the total offspring that is round yellow or yellow round is 9 by 16. That is the total number of offspring according to Mendel into 960. That would come up to be 540. Similarly, this data is for F2 generation, F2. Similarly, for F1 generation, the question itself says there are 20 offspring in the F1 generation, survive 20. And now we know by doing the cross that all the offspring that was in the F1 progeny was round yellow. So, जितना भी offspring survive किया है, that is suppose 20 हो, 1000 हो, 100 हो, सारा का सारा क्या होगा? Yellow round होगा. ठीक है? So, if the question says 20 offspring survive हुआ है in F1 generation, so the number of yellow round offspring in F1 generation would be 20, and the number of round yellow offspring in F2 generation would be 540. So the option would be, let's see, which matches 20 and 540 we are getting. Here says 20, 960, no. So this would be option B. 20 offspring having round yellow characteristic in F1 generation and 540 in F2 generation. So this is how we solve these kind of problems. Okay. Stay tuned for more such interesting questions. Thank you and have a nice day ahead. Thank you.